Welcome back to another episode of Trust in the Force. I'm your host, Vactor. I'm here with my pal Super Tim. How you doing today, Tim?
Fantastic. The Force is with me today.
Nice. Very nice. Today we're going to be talking about Skeleton Crew, episode 3. Very interesting. An
Yes.
astrogation problem. So we're going to be talking all
Several,
about that
actually,
episode.
yeah.
Yeah. On today's episode, sit back, relax, and join us for a discussion of the third episode of Star Wars Skeleton Crew. So far, Tim, what are you thinking of Skeleton Crew?
Well, obviously, the first two episodes were really good and were really strong, and I was like, "Well, this is good. This is a nice start." But sometimes, especially with these limited streaming series, you're like, "Okay, but how? Like, is this gonna?" Because a lot of them are structured like a film, and are stretching
Right.
it out over the course of that time because a lot of them are structured. They're kind of veering away from that a little bit because it wasn't working. But this was great. Really provided some nice mystery as to was Jod his name? Can't remember.
Yes.
Jude Law's character.
Let me look that up. The full name. It's we can call him Jod, Crimson Jack,
Or
Jude
Captain
Law.
Silvo.
Yes.
It's like you could have had a drinking game for how many aliases Jude Law had in this episode.
Right.
And which leads us to the question: why does he have so many aliases? Obviously, he's, if he's a Jedi, then why is he? I mean, because obviously, Obi-Wan had, the one alias Ben, but it wasn't. But he still kept Kenobi. So, and obviously the kids don't trust him for good reason. So, yeah, really, really interesting developments here with Jude Law's character.
In our last review of episodes 1 and 2, we talked about, do we think there's the possibility of him being like Kumail Nanjiani's character in Obi-Wan, where he was pretending to be a Jedi and pulling a fast one? In this episode, Fern, she even calls it out. She's like, okay, it could be magnets, it could be string, it could be all of these different things. So,
and because of Obi-Wan with Kamali Nanjiani's character, we've seen this kind of Force con man before. So is he a Jedi? Is he not? Obviously with here this alias of Captain Silvo that we saw in the first episode, he's using it as a pirate. Why is he using the Crimson Jack alias? And if he's got nothing to hide as a Jedi, then why is he making all these shifty deals with everybody as well?
Yes, which Crimson Jack, there's actually 2 different Crimson Jacks in the Star Wars lore. So in the original Star Wars comics from the 70s, there's a Crimson Jack character and he's got crimson red hair. And then in the new canon, after Disney bought Lucasfilm, there's a Halcyon comic that was supposed to tie into the Star Wars Hotel.
Yeah, I've read it, yeah.
The Crimson Jack character in that, can you tell us anything about him? Because I haven't read that issue.
It's been a while since I've read it, so I'm a little unfamiliar because it was so long ago. Because it's back when the now defunct Galactic Star Cruiser attraction hotel thing. This was one of several moves by Disney and Lucasfilm to promote this. They also promoted it in the Princess and the Scoundrel novel, which is a great novel. It's about Han and Solo and Leia getting married, Han getting a bachelor party from Ewoks. Yeah, it's great. If you love Han and Leia, it's the book for you. Anyway, but besides, but going back to it, I can't remember the
obviously he wasn't a main character or he didn't have a big impact on it, but I think they're taking from that lore, as this is not going to be the same character. I don't think. It's not like Jude Law shaved his hair and he was a redhead. But I want to know, why is he Crimson Jack? What's all the mystery behind that? I saw in an interview Jude Law said episode 7 he's going to give all of the details away. You're going to find out his complete backstory in episode 7, so the penultimate episode for this series, or hopefully we get another season, but for this season, penultimate episode. But I was watching the Screen Crush review of this. They did both an Easter egg video and a review. And
interesting, because usually the Easter egg videos are together with the review.
Yeah, I noticed they're starting to do this more and more. I don't know if it's because they're trying to stretch out the content. Either way, I enjoy both of those. But in that episode, in the review episode, they actually made a very good point. They were talking about Skeleton Crew and how versus the Acolyte. The Acolyte was putting mystery ahead of character.
Mhm.
And as in terms of prominence and importance in the show, everything was about the mystery. But
Yeah.
we as an audience, we already knew the answers to the mysteries in the first episode. It was like, and if we
Yeah,
didn't know
they
the answers,
and we
it was
talked
easy
about
to
this last
tell.
week a little bit when comparing this to the Acolyte, because the Acolyte was the most recent thing, most recent live action Star Wars thing that we've gotten. Um, is I feel that I'm more invested in the mystery this time around, as opposed to the Acolyte. And obviously episode 5 of that show was a great way to pay off that mystery, but I kind of feel like that the mystery, like, okay, yeah, of course Manny Jacinto's the Sith, um,
Yeah.
but with Jude Law's character and his kind of you know interesting backstory, I find myself more invested,
Yeah.
and I'm like, because it's giving me enough. It's giving me enough to where, like, oh, okay, like, I'm not saying talking to myself right, but or saying things right, but it's giving me enough mystery to, like, okay, like, I'm interested, but it's not like, oh yeah, this is what I'm doing, wink wink.
Hmm.
uh so
Yeah.
it's much, it's more well written. And not to say that Leslie Headland, it wasn't a capable writer, she definitely was, but I kind of feel like that the mystery left a little bit to be desired. And John Watts, and Christopher Ford, who are writing 5 out of these, I think 5 or
Mm.
6 out of these 8 episodes that we're getting of this show. And I feel like that the mystery, because it's playing off of good Star Wars storytelling, but it's also that ET storytelling. Like, what's ET? What's his deal? Giving us enough that we're interested, but not too much that it's detracting from the story.
Yeah. And all of those things are valid. Your feelings, I think, are justified and valid because of what Screen Crush was pointing out. That not only are they putting the mystery ahead of the character in importance, but also in Skeleton Crew, a huge difference is the mysteries are important to the characters. You're
Yes.
not they're not withholding the information for narrative purposes, but they're showing us as the audience we're discovering the answers along with the characters,
Mm-hmm.
and so it
Yeah,
feels more
because yeah,
rewarding.
that's such a good point. Sorry to cut you off. But yeah, because we started this story of Skeleton Crew from Wim and Neil's perspective, and then introducing JB and Fern along the way. We're in their shoes. We're
Mhm.
with them. Um, and one of my favorite, but and the humor is still great in
Yes,
this
yes,
in this episode.
100%. Yep.
My favorite part was like, don't seal the doors and take off without me. And then Fern says, seal the doors and take off without him.
Yes, yes.
Made me laugh
All
so
the
hard. I loved it. Loved
Yeah,
it.
all the
And
comedy and the humor is great.
yeah, SM-33 still proven to be my favorite droid. Is this Jedi bothering you, Captain?
That part, and
So,
then when he was talking to Jude Law and he raised up, that part made me laugh so hard when he was shorter than
yeah.
him and then he raised up taller than him.
Yeah,
But
it
all
was
of
almost
these
like Biff from Back to the Future,
Yes, a
where
100%,
like
yes, right.
where Biff just like stands all
Yeah,
like intimidating next to Michael J. Fox. Yeah, it's
yeah.
really good, really good.
All of these mysteries are it's pushing it forward and that we want to be rewarded as we find out with the characters what are the answers to these mysteries. Obviously, like I said in episode 7, Jude Law said we're going to find out who is Crimson Jack, like what was his whole backstory. But I think the big mystery is, are the kids going to get back? What is At Attin? Why is it under this barrier? Why, like, what is going on with At Attin? I put out a short on my Vactorverse channel, and I was saying, what is the deal with At Attin? Like, what is going on? We don't know, and that's kind of exciting. And when we reviewed Acolyte, there was some things where I was like, I don't 100% know where this is going to go, and that's exciting to me because I don't want to be able to predict every single thing that's going to happen. And with this show, Skeleton Crew, I think it's even more so that I don't know. I have no clue where this is going, what's going to happen after this show, leading into episode 7, 8, 9, and into the Mando and Grogu movie. How are these things going to be affected? So all of the mysteries, I think, if they can stick the landing and make these things like very interesting to us, and not necessarily where everything has to tie into how did Palpatine get cloned and how did all of these other things get happen. Like
Yeah.
if they make Skeleton Crew a standalone good story, this is going to be a win. This is going to be something that I think you and I are going to come back and rewatch over and over again, show to our children. And that's what
Mm.
I think Star Wars is missing right now. We had a State of Star Wars episode where we talked all about this, but good stories that exist on their own and don't necessarily have to tie into, okay, why did everything else, like trying to make sense of somehow Palpatine returned. I feel like they're spending so much time on that and so much brain power. It's like, let's just make good stories. Let's just make these things really good
Yeah.
stories.
And going back to the mystery bit, like to like the first two episodes, the whole thing with At Attin wasn't really a huge mystery to me. It's just like, oh, it's just another planet, another planet that's farthest from the bright center of the universe, like Tatooine or Jakku
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
or or, Lothal,
Mhm.
and Rebels like that. And then once what and when they talk to the owl cat, I don't know what
Yes.
creature it is, but it looked like a
Yeah.
mix between an owl and a cat.
Yes,
um
they haven't revealed the species yet, which was exciting. Also, again, I turned to my
yeah.
wife, I said, "This is a new species. We do not know what this is. I could not classify this for you." That is exciting to me, like we're getting new things in Star Wars.
It was really cool to and saying, like, like they talked about the great work, which is a nod to the High Republic, because Chancellor Lena So had a lot of great works that she was doing. Starlight Beacon, the party on Valo, which got attacked by the Nile in that, and in the Rising Storm book, and yes, like all these things, these projects she was doing, um and and that the kids don't know that a war happened, like that they don't know,
Yes.
like they basically don't know that. And we kind of like got a sense of that in the last two episodes, but to see that confirmed is like they don't know, like that's just crazy. Like the galaxy changed all around them and they don't know about it. They're just in their little bubble, in their
Yeah.
barrier. And that there were several planets like this, jewels of the old republic, and that just so many good things, so many good mysteries. It's moving forward nicely at a nice pace. You don't feel like you're being spoon fed the answers. It was really good storytelling, really good Star Wars storytelling. And these characters are just so endearing. They're very much reminiscent of the classic trilogy characters that we fell in love with. And yeah, it's just been a really, really fun show. Really fun
Yes.
show. And I'm so on board with what it's doing. And Jude
Mhm.
Law is really bringing it. Like, I was surprised that it took this long to introduce him. Like we said last week, I thought he was going to be, because we did see a little bit of him in the teaser of the first episode, but I thought we were going to see more of him in that episode,
Right.
and in the second episode too. But
Mhm.
we didn't see him to the end of that second episode, and what they're doing with him, how he's written, and how Jude Law is playing him is just a perfect storm. It's
Yes,
just so well done.
like when he's first introduced and he's almost like a Yoda mentor, and he's like, there's no, like, the distance between the key and us is an illusion. That to me is tying into the Star Wars mythos and giving you like an Easter egg of, like, you get that familiar feeling, but it's also new, and we don't know, was he a Jedi? Is he just a pirate that has force capabilities? We still don't even know if he's actually using the force. And then in this episode, they confirmed Well, I never actually said I was a Jedi. Like, that made me laugh when he gave
Yeah.
that to the kids. So, I'm really excited to see where that goes, where the At Attin mystery goes. Like you, the characters have endeared themselves to me, every single one of them. There's not an annoying character to me in the bunch,
No, no.
and
No,
like the
no one's
original
complaining about going to Tashi Station at all. So,
well, like those original characters, you think about it's it's kind of hard to put ourselves back into what was it like before I saw episode 4 for the first time. But
sure.
coming back, these are all new characters that we've never met before, and we're immediately like interested. Hey, I care about these characters. That is the hook that every story needs right away. Do you care about the characters? Because if you don't, the rest of the journey is for naught. There's no reason to be following it if you're not into the characters. If you're not connecting to those characters, why would you want to go on the ride with them? So to
Right.
me, Skeleton Crew from episode 1 had me, but I
Yeah.
think these first 3, I mean, even if they had put this third one last week, like on the first day, I think it would have been a great hook for people to, because even after 1 and 2 last week, I was listening to a podcast and the host was saying, "Well, it's hard for me to care because it's Goonies, it's suburbs smashed into Star Wars, and where's the Star Wars of it?" This episode, I'm like,
This is
here's
the
your
Star
Star
Wars.
Wars. When
Yeah.
I was watching
Yeah.
this episode, I was like, that host spoke way too soon. If you had just seen episode 3, this is Star
Yeah.
Wars. This is the adventure. This is the action. Like, this is what you want in a Star
I
Wars.
saw
Aliens. Yeah.
I saw a thing on Threads today where someone said, "Okay, like episode 1 doesn't feel like Star Wars, but okay." Like second one's like, "This feels more like Star Wars," and episode 3 was like, "This is the most Star Wars-iest thing that I've ever seen in the history of Star Wars." And I'm like,
Yes.
"Yeah, it's because
Yeah.
it has all these because we had a little bit of the cantina vibe last week
Mhm.
in episode 2, but this like we're really seeing like new creatures and new kinds of people and a new place in the galaxy that we're exploring. And as you were talking about, caring about the characters and caring about where it's going, and if we don't care about the characters, and I like going back to the Acolyte, I don't think that Osha and May were probably well defined characters that we could get
Mhm.
behind. um I mean, there's so many things about the Acolyte that I do like and love, but when I think about how the character work in Star Wars, when Din Djarin first makes his appearance in The Mandalorian, I'm in. When Poe and Finn and Rey are doing their thing in The Force Awakens, I'm in. Um, and like when Win and Neil and Fern and JB are doing their thing, I'm in. And but with the Force Awakens too, it's taking me back to to that kind of feeling. Whereas there were mysteries there too, like who's Rey, like what's her deal.
Mhm.
And obviously, ultimately, those mysteries never went anywhere. But
Yeah.
um, but I'm
And
I'm
that's what I
very
want
much interested.
Skeleton Crew. Yeah.
Yeah. I want these mysteries to pay off, and I
Yes.
think we'll definitely see a payoff of that. And this episode was directed by, again, David Lowery, who's a
Mhm.
fantastic director. If you want to see more of his stuff, watch The Green Knight. That is a
Yes.
fantastic film.
Mhm.
Really well shot, and this was also really well shot. Um, I want to ask you something. How did you feel when the X-wings showed up?
It gave me a sense of, okay, where am I at? Like, it almost felt like a grounding thing. So when I saw the X-wings, now obviously, I had a little bit of nostalgia of, oh, the X-wings, like, and we
Right.
had
It puts
heard
you in there,
about
yeah.
them before we saw them, but it kind of locked me in a little bit into, oh yeah, like, this is that time period, and then this is the place. And really, the thing I was thinking was, are we gonna see, and I'm forgetting his name, but he was in,
Carson
Man,
Teva.
yeah, I was like, are we gonna
Yeah.
see him again? Because he's been in so many things now.
Look, I kid you not. Like as soon as like these X-wings come in, I'm like saying to myself, $10 says that Carson Teva is in there, and
That's
he
what I was
was
saying
not. I was
too. Yeah.
surprised. I was surprised.
I turned to
Um,
my wife when I was watching, I was like, "Are we gonna see him?" But, yeah, when we didn't see him, I was like,
yeah.
"Oh, man." But, yeah, it just
And
kind of
he's played by a Sun Hyung Lee,
Yes.
um, who played Uncle Iroh in the Avatar live action.
Yes, yes.
And so yeah, I thought he was gonna show up and and be like, "Oh, so what happened here? What's going
Yeah.
on?" Because he's been in Mandalorian, he's been in Book of
Mhm.
Boba Fett, he's been in I think he was in Ahsoka as well. Not
I
sure.
think yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but he's been almost like the Nick Fury of this
Yes,
side
yeah.
of the universe. Uh, um, and so I half expected him to emerge from the X-wing, but it was just some no-name pilot. I'm like, oh, okay,
Yes.
we don't have to
They
have him in everything, but I was just shocked that he wasn't there.
Yeah. Wikipedia has him listed as X-Wing Commander Kent. I don't know who that
Hmm.
character is, but, yeah, we may never see him again. But that actually brings up another good point that I wanted to say. The Easter eggs in this show are amazing, like, everything that we're seeing in the background of different alien species, hearing different noises. Again, we talked about Mick Giacchino in the last episode about him and his, score. There's a bunch of Star Tours, like, you can see the Star Tour ship in a scene, and,
Yeah,
there's
I saw
Captain
that. I'm
EO.
like it's the Star Tour ship, yay! Because I have a little Star Tour ship toy on the
Yeah,
top of my bookshelf.
yeah.
So yeah,
So, as a Star Wars fan and somebody who I was I was born in the '80s, but I kinda grew up in the '90s, but it feels right for me. I feel like this show was made for
and
me
the Easter
even.
eggs aren't taking away from anything. They're not
Right,
like, hey, remember this? Wink,
right,
wink, and
right.
drawing attention to themselves, like they've done in prior Star Wars series.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, like, hey, remember when this happened, and remember that thing that you liked? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool.
And I
Um,
feel like this is a show that is made for us, and I almost take offense when people are like, "Oh, it's a kids show," because it's very much doing what those Amblin movies did in the '80s, where it was made like their kids are the main characters, but I don't feel like those were kids' movies necessarily. E.T., Goonies, a lot of those, I felt like those were made for adults, but they had kid protagonists. That's what this show feels like to me. It was made for adults. There's so many Easter eggs in here that the kids would never get. The references and the things that they're pulling from,
sure.
like, are every time I'm seeing something, it's like blowing my mind. And
But
I
I
just
think if you show them to like younger kids but like and they would be like, oh, that's a cool little thing.
Mhm. They'll come
And
back to it later. "Oh, I
and
didn't
they'll
know it
come back
meant
to it
that."
later, like, oh, that was that thing that was in Skeleton
Yeah.
Crew. Okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's funny because a friend of mine does a Muppet podcast, and he was talking about how one of his students was talking to him about young Sheldon, about how he as a teacher looked like young Sheldon. And he's like, oh, and he made a Big Bang Theory reference, and they were like, what's that?
Oh, man. That's Yeah, it's kinda crazy, like, we're getting to the
Yeah,
point, you and I, where, things that happened 10 years ago, 20 years ago, it's like people are saying, "Oh, that's old now," and like, "What?" I Feels like yesterday. I grew up on this stuff, but I think
yeah,
the like I said, the action, the comedy, the
hmm,
mystery, and then the characters. All of these things are coming together for Skeleton Crew that it's the narrative is pushing me forward and making me say, "Oh, I cannot wait until next week to see the next episode." And again, going back to that Screen Crush episode I was talking about, the main point that they were saying was the actions that are happening, like the results of the mysteries are going to affect the character, and this show is putting character first, whereas Acolyte put mystery first. So I
right.
think this formula is a winner for Skeleton Crew.
Also talking about, one of the complaints that we had, a lot of us who were talking about the Acolyte earlier this year, was the ending and how each episode ended.
Mhm. Yeah.
This is such a stark contrast. Like the ending to this episode was so pitch perfect. Like, I didn't think it was gonna end there. Because I was looking at like the timer, like, okay, we got like 12 minutes of this episode. We'll probably have 5 minutes of credits, and because that's how the Disney Plus series have been going ever since WandaVision.
Yeah, I hate
And
seeing that. Like, man, there's more. There's more.
I know.
Is there
like,
an
what
Easter
do you mean
egg at the
5
end?
minutes of credits? There's not
Yeah.
that many people that worked on that. It's just we love all of you who make this show. You are important and you are valued. But when the X-wing pilot opens the door and asks the owlcat creature, where did they go? You never believe me. And then cut. I'm like, that's perfect. That's a perfect ending. Whereas, with the Acolyte, you felt like it was just like not quite ending. Like it just needed something, maybe a little more oomph with it.
Yeah.
And but this has been just a fantastic show. The kids are like they're really anchoring this show in a way that I never would have thought possible. I thought, we would have had somebody whining about something, and the parents also as well. We haven't talked about the parents.
Yeah, we saw them together in this episode.
We had that one scene where they're just like, "Oh yeah, the droids will find them. Well, the droids will find them. They'll be fine." Yeah, because that always works out.
Yes.
But yeah, the show is so good. It's so good. I'm so glad that episodes 1 and 2 were not a fluke, and that was my takeaway after the episode ended. I was like, I'm so glad episodes 1 and 2 were not a fluke, and then episode 3 was amazing, and it's going to keep going. I have a feeling the quality is. I mean, they're going to have to try really hard to take a dive in quality after these 3 episodes.
They are very confident in where they're going. I don't feel like I'm on shaky ground. I feel like the foundation for this show is very solid. So I just trust that where they're going to take me, I'm going to enjoy. So that's a very good feeling. And you don't feel like
you're in the minority in liking this show like you were with the Acolyte.
Yeah.
Where you were like, where it's like a select corner of the Star Wars fandom. I've only heard nothing but positive things about this show. It's been universally loved and praised, which is nice. I haven't seen that in a Star Wars show, I think, since The Mandalorian season 2.
Yeah, that's right.
I think that's the last time we saw it in a Disney Plus series. I mean, everybody liked the Bad Batch, but everyone always gravitates towards the live action. The live action gets more exposure.
So this feels good. And if you enjoyed this episode of Skeleton Crew, leave a comment down below. Let us know what you enjoyed about it. Or if you picked out some Easter eggs that we did not pick out, let us know, because I love all of these things that are in the background, all the things that are going on. Oh, did you pick out the voice of, so when they were in the brig, or when Jack was getting away, the other guy, his old crew member, did you pick out his voice?
That was Alfred Molina.
Yeah,
Mr. Doc Ock. Yeah.
Yes.
As soon as he started talking, I'm like, "That's Alfred Molina."
Yes, I turned to my wife.
I wanted him to say the power of the sun in the palm of my hand or something.
That's actually what I quoted to my wife as I turned to her, and she was like, "What?" So that was great. I loved hearing Alfred Molina. So yeah, the cast has been great. The owl creature Kim was voiced by alias Shawkat, who was in Arrested Development as Maybe, and one of my wife's favorite shows of all time.
That's wonderful.
She was doing like an older voice, like she was putting on a character and a voice.
Wow, that's great.
So yeah, she did a great job. But man, this show is cooking on all cylinders. I'm really enjoying it. Skeleton Crew.
I look forward every week to every episode now.
Yes, this is going to be a very good ride, like I said. So we're in for the long haul. 8 episodes. We're going to be talking about it here on Trust in the Force every week.
Trust only.